This is a Heart and Hand production.
Happy Friday, happy beautiful Friday to you all. Hottest day of the year so far, and the heat is rising in the Premier League race, Premier Division, Premiership, whatever the hell Scotland calls its top flight these days. Only 5 games to go, and this is the Rangers Prism, where we look forward and the present and to the past. I'm Martin, I'm with Adam. We are two of those podcaster type fans that you get these days, as I was described this week in not the most complimentary terms. How are we doing, Adam?
Fine, I would appreciate if you don't lump me in with yourself, but thank you.
Yeah, toxic radiation, apparently. Well, what a week it has been, Adam, and only one story really to get into in a variety of different angles was, of course, the announcement. Pretty surprising in its timing. Wouldn't have been surprised if this had kind of rumbled onto the summer, and then we got that Instagram post, as we're so used to seeing these days. Yeah, there's maybe a story behind all of that, as there always is. But of course, James Tavernier announcing that he will be leaving at the end of his contract this summer. We'll talk about the impact on the pitch in a minute. I have had an interesting couple of days on social media, I think it's fair to say. I was on Sky, anyone who doesn't know, did a bit for Sky on Wednesday. And I actually left, I think that was quite a nice wee 4 minutes on what is, Adam, I don't think it's controversial to say, a complicated relationship between James Tavernier and the Rangers support. Anything else, I think, is completely whitewashing the situation. It has been difficult at times, and Gordon Duncan, obviously, who was doing the interview, really for the English audience, asked me to try and explain why this guy with these numbers, insane numbers, why there's even a debate about his status at the club, and why there's even the slightest bit of tension. And I tried to explain. I don't think it's just a Rangers thing. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, because I mentioned Harry Kane at Spurs as well. You know, no matter how many goals this guy scored, what's he won? We can't take the individual out of this team game for whatever reasons. I said that was unfair. I said that was completely unrealistic, and we have to do a bit of work as fans and media to be a bit more nuanced in our conversation. But also the role of the captain, especially at this club. We have an image about what that captain looks like, and it's successful. And that's unfair as well. But I was paraphrasing what a lot of fans have said, literally have said over the course of the few years, that he is captain failure and this kind of serial loser. He is the lightning rod. He is to blame for all of this. Obviously, I don't agree with that, but I was merely trying to convey what the kind of general tension has been in that relationship. The tweet that went out didn't quite capture that, I think it's fair to say. And it's been an interesting couple of days. But let's talk about that complicated relationship. Another thing I did say, Adam, was that history will be kind to James Tavernier, a hell of a lot kinder than the current day or at times of his tenure has been. And we will appreciate him once the dust settles as being a captain in a very difficult, turbulent, transitional time. But a lot of misty eyes this week from people who have been spitting feathers at various points over the last few years.
Yes, and I'm fortunate that some of our eyes have been misty for all of those 11 years. So I'm all good with my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I understand it. You're one of my favourite people, but if you're asking me to choose, there's no competition. No, I joke. Yeah, I think it is that. For me, it's really, really simple. And it always has been in the James Tavernier debate, and it should be for anything in life. Are the pros of me doing this outweighing the cons of me doing this? And that has always been the case with James Tavernier, even up until now, where people have been saying his legs have gone for 3 or 4 years, and he's still clocking up more numbers in appearances than fullbacks 10 years younger than him and supposedly more robust. So, yeah, but the whole leadership thing, I think you know that I think it is overplayed. I think the manager has outlined that quite nicely this week, that he thinks that Nico Raskin, in terms of being able to control the pitch from the middle, is his guy there, that can set the tempo, can start things, can stop things. Within there, we know there's been much debated leadership groups in the past, so I do think it is a collective, and I think more often you're seeing Kevin De Bruyne, Martin Odegaard, that the team's best player is a leader on the pitch, and I think I would put Tavernier in that category. I would say it is leading by example rather than shouting and screaming and heading your granny away. Basically, I think it's just one of those things that people just won't agree on until there is a period of success. And I've said this before: you win a couple of titles and it flips completely.
Yeah.
People will hear no criticism of even the most benign of squad players. Good argument on social media this week, which I enjoyed, to be honest, and it was a comparison between Paul McStay and James Tavernier, and I think it's probably quite valid. But someone made a quite sarcastic, but I think true, absolutely true point that Kirk Broadfoot has won significantly more than Paul McStay. That sums up my opinion on it, because that type of thing is absolutely true, but it has nothing at all to do with the quality of the player whatsoever. Tony Ralston winning more trophies, yes, that is a thing for sure. You won't find anyone who would pick that him over James Tavernier, for example. So it sort of loses it for me, because we're talking about singling out individuals within a team game.
So back to one of the points I made at the start of that interview, and I think I've made countless times. We need to be better when assessing individual football careers at just painting the entire era of success onto one player. It's a team game. It's absolutely ridiculous. You could pull out any number of Rangers, utility player, squad player, reserve player, whatever, who has league championship medals more than some players who have been far, far better. It's just a nonsense. Yeah. Jimmy Traore's Champions League medal, etc., etc. So there's that. The leadership thing, we slightly disagree on. Rangers would have been better if we just had far better players in at the same time who were bigger personalities and could take that weight off of Tavernier and that group around the kind of Clement time, who needed led themselves. They were doing the best in a very, very difficult kind of situation. And again, history will be very, very kind to what they actually did achieve in the context of the turbulence of the era and Rangers trying to structurally regain some kind of period of or place and position of power. But that, again, that's on us as people who have a platform. It's on professional sports writers and broadcasters to just be a lot more grown up about how we convey these things. Back to the right back issue, Adam, and I think I said this in the piece as well, he has come through at a transformational time for the position, right? In terms of what we expect, and it might be generationally split around Ibrox and indeed other stadia around the country about what they expect a fullback to be doing. You mentioned at the start, you get the numbers, that you have to be prepared to lose a bit of solidity, cover, robustness. There might be someone missing positionally as a result of that. But again, this is going back to the team thing. Were Tav and Borna not at their best when Jack and Kamara could just cover, could just fill in, and it meant that they could attack with purpose, but also the security that door would be relatively closed. It's about the position within. And when they either left, got injured, form fell off a cliff, and especially when John Lundstrom, bless him, who puts his hand up for anything, said, well, I can do both. Everyone can go forward, and we've effectively a kind of front six or whatever. Well, he couldn't, and all of a sudden, fingers are pointed kind of elsewhere because that cover no longer exists, or is that too simplistic? Have I misread that over these years?
No, I don't think it is. I've got some thoughts on that. I think just on the kind of captaincy thing. Again, it's a well-worn comparison, but I would be quite comfortable if you put changed nothing else but swap James Tavernier with a captain from the 90s, for example. I don't think trophy hauls change immeasurably in this decade or that
It's
decade.
the team.
Therefore, in my head, if I'm taking it to the binary conclusion, I don't see a huge issue. I don't see a huge factor there in captaincy. Yes, in really single decisive moments, things would probably spin another way, but I don't think we're talking about 4, 5, 6, 7 more trophies in this last decade. So yeah, just on that, I do find it interesting because the job of a coach or the job of a manager is to maximize positives and maximize strengths and minimize weaknesses. So Rangers for the last decade have struggled to score goals. Myself and Ali on Tactics Talk have spoken about that for a fair bit outside of the 55 season, probably, but we spoke before that about over reliance on Tavernier and Morelos scoring goals for a long, long time. So if you're thinking about that as a coach and you're thinking, I've got this weapon here from right back that is going to score these goals, I would build my tactics around making sure that I can allow him to do what he wants to do, or what he is best at, I should say, not what he wants to do. And I think we've seen that with those 3 years, like you mentioned, it was an evolution. You had Candeas in the first year, and it was he needs Candeas to do. No, it's a partnership. Like I need my legs to walk. It doesn't. If I can't walk without, like, it's not
Yeah, yeah.
like it's a partnership. Like it's a thing, and it's not a negative. It's not a crutch. It's a positive that we're recognizing that we can make this right hand side of the park really strong, have really good defensive cover, and have an attacking threat. There is no bad point about that. And then you move into that sort of flat midfield three era, and again, people like me probably screaming that we weren't getting enough goals from central midfield at times, as I was, but there's a balance that has to be struck. In some games, it would go too far and be too cautious, and we struggle to score goals. In other games, Borna Barisic would assist James Tavernier, and it would work, and everything would be fine. I think since Steven Gerrard left, well, no one will tell you that it's been a period of extreme calm and extreme consistency and extremely terrific players and terrific team selections. So again, taking that to its logical conclusion, when there is no consistency of partnership, of relationships, of quality, then things are going to get a little bit bumpier at times. You are basically telling people to just go out and play. We talk about how Daniel Candeas has never been replaced on that right-hand side. So again, taking that to its logical conclusion, that means James Tavernier has never had a settled partner on that right-hand side to build those relationships with. Those things matter. They really do. I can't put a finer point on it. Rangers have struggled over the last few years because we've basically not named an unchanged selection from game to game, or if we have, it's been less than 10 times in the last 3 or 4 years. So all of those things matter. A coach or a manager for me needs to accentuate strengths and minimize weaknesses, and I think Steven Gerrard did that to a T. James Tavernier has had really good individual moments in these last 3 years. I think Van Bronckhorst did it quite well in the Europa League run as well, allowing him to get in there at the back post and get those opportunities and goals. But since then, I don't think we've set ourselves up as a team, as a club at all. Hopefully, up until right now, for success. And I do think that, rightly or wrongly, it can be a cop out. But I think James Tavernier has struggled with the quality and the consistency and the availability around him, more than himself. That's absolutely not to say that he's infallible. As good as he is at attacking the back post in the final third, he's just as bad in the defensive third. Sometimes it's switching off. But again, you can't expect perfection. And I do think when you've got someone like that with such an innate ability to do what he does, I do think there needs to be protection put into the team. I think that's just bog standard for a coach and a manager, to be honest. It's ironic. I know I want to come around to the timing of it. I'm sure you might speak about that as well. But I had ironically been enjoying less James Tavernier discourse over the last 2 or 3 months, because we were finally in a position where everybody thought we should be, where James Tavernier can contribute when he needs to
He's
contribute.
used, yeah.
And he can, something that we've been trying to do for 2 or 3 years, to rotate, get the best out of him. I was enjoying the fact that Dujon Sterling was coming in, playing quite well, offering a different option in there. And then here we are, we get a surprise announcement that, if I'm honest, I think we could have done without, because as much as you won't find someone who likes James Tavernier more than me, Rangers are still the number one priority, and Rangers are still the most important thing. So the timing of it, I'm a little bit unsure of. You can spin it any way you like. I don't really think there would have been incessant questions about James Tavernier's future in the next 2 weeks, because there had been none until Tuesday.
Yeah,
No one was mentioning it at all. So that's a little bit odd to me. The BBC interview, I think dodging that as he did was fine. I didn't have an issue with that. But as I think maybe Chris Jack said on Rangers Review the other day there, say there's another 2 or 3 of those questions in the next few weeks, I'm sure he could dodge those as well. Yeah, so the timing of it is a little bit strange. On the flip side, maybe it gives an incentive. On the negative, maybe it adds more pressure to try and get it over the line. I would just have preferred that we were carrying on as we were, if I'm being honest. And then, like you said, hopefully a successful end to the season, an Instagram post or whatever, a interview on RTV or whatever, to say like that's me done. It has added a bit of noise unnecessarily as far as I'm concerned, but I'm really happy that social media has been misty-eyed, if you want to call it that, but overwhelmingly positive about it. I think that shows the player and the man that he was, particularly from his ex-teammates as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll just be, I think, more so in the coming years, as I said, when that context and understanding. The timing, I would agree with you. This was not a player who's maybe 28 and coming to the end of a contract and maybe has a bigger move, one final move, maybe younger than 28 these days. And it's just this incessant clamour for what's going to happen. The club desperate to keep him, or he's maybe keen to move on to bigger and better things, or whatever it may be. One of those situations, I can understand that clarity being really helpful, Adam. It just hasn't been. It's in the back of people's minds, obviously, with an understanding that he either will go, or there'll be some kind of reduced new deal to reflect almost certainly and a further reduced impact on the team in terms of appearances and contribution. In this season of all seasons, where the focus has just been on weekend by weekend, all that noise hasn't really played a part. It's just not been part of the story this season. So You're absolutely right. Everyone's looking in and guessing. That won't stop us either. I'm assuming either deal wasn't on the table for him, or there was too much silence and he just decided, well, fine, here we go. It seems to have been player led, and we've kind of been following that lead. So yeah, fair enough. And again, because of the nature of the season, it's been a big conversation this week. Come this weekend, and we're back to the real business, and this feeling of 5 hurdles still to go for everybody. It wouldn't surprise me if that kind of just disappears again, to be honest. But yeah, it's a reminder about, and we're all guilty of it, I'm sure I have been on multiple occasions, but we do need to be better when assessing individuals, that it's how they fit within a team. How many, you talk about being a Tav fanboy, Adam. I think we spoke about this on our Champions League show, the main event. I was a huge Gaizka Mendieta fan. I thought he was just the most cultured and controllable footballer you've seen, or controlling football. Loved him at Valencia. Lazio didn't work. Serie A maybe didn't work. It just wasn't the right fit for that particular player. It's all about combinations. International football accentuates this as well. You might have three people for 2 positions. You can say player A is by far the best defender, but these 2 are the best partnership. You've got to go with the combinations. You've got to go with the chemistry. It's not a kind of dream team thing. So, reminders for us all. Big job then, Adam, to fill these numbers. And I would prefer, as much as I love heroic talisman that you adore, that maybe that responsibility does not rest on one new pair of shoulders, but it actually gets spread across the team. And sometimes you find when that shadow goes, that others do step into the space and kind of make it their own and become more creative and more their personality shines through. I certainly hope so, but it's very obvious we're going to need to bring in those numbers, and I think definitely from players plural rather than a new James Tavernier.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing I've been enjoying about Danny Rule over the last 6 months has been it's a team effort. Who has been the outstanding player? You ask 10 people, they'll have 6, 7, 8 different names. I think in terms of what they think. So again, I had been enjoying that. It's not been since the 55 season really that we've been blessed with that in terms of goals coming from lots of different areas. Defenders putting in shifts, all that sort of stuff. So that's the template. That's what it should be. Like you said, I mean, talisman are great. Absolutely can't love that. I've been marveling at Cherky this week because he feels like such a throwback to that era. Both, please, would be the answer. Can we have proper game changing players that are supported by a solid team? I was going to say I'm not concerned, but you really shouldn't be concerned because yes, you can replace James Tavernier for sure. Are you going to have a right back that gets 144 goals, 148
No.
assists, whatever it is? You're not. No, but as I said before, that's James Tavernier having to step up time and time again to do X, Y, and Z because, frankly, outside of a couple of other players, there was no one capable of doing that consistently at those times. So, if Rangers score more goals than that and the right back gets one of them, I really couldn't care less as far as I'm concerned. So it all comes down to recruitment. Some of the noises coming out that we've seen certainly from January onwards suggest that the type of players that we'll be looking at will be similar to what we've had in terms of January, maybe the better ones from the summer. So I don't really have any doubts on it. I think it will be clear what we are going to do. Whether that works or not, of course, we don't know, but I do think it will be more of the same, shall we say, more of a team game, more of a energy, aggression, getting bodies up the pitch, getting the ball up the pitch quickly, which again, I really don't have I like to see attacking football that scores lots of goals. I could not care less how it really happens. And I think overall, if that's what we do, then yes, we'll miss James Tavernier. It will be a legend that we can look back on and we can say that was like you said, history will 100% be kind to the player himself, and there'll be a recognition of all of the bumpy things that we are living or hopefully moving out of living in the last decade or so. But I think history will look at him really, really kindly. But the best thing Rangers can do is make sure he's not missed, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Blast from the past in this week in Rangers history. Could have had title wins because we're into that kind of time. Trevor Stevens' header at Tannadice has come through. And the evening that we got as close to the heavens as possible, I suppose, with Siska Moscow draw and my 12-year-old heart being broken after being absolutely convinced we were going to win the first Champions League in Munich. But 3 games just to throw out, not title winners, but games that set up title winners and absolutely got fans mad excited for what was going to happen the next week. In 1999, Celtic dropped points, I think, at St Johnstone on the Saturday. We played Aberdeen. At Ibrox went one behind, but Gabby Amato put in the kind of performance that he could throw in now and again, and we beat Aberdeen to set up, of course, the win at Parkhead, greatest domestic day in our history, arguably. There was one in Gascoigne's first season, 95-96, when we went to Fir Park, and Celtic pretty much hoping that this was where Rangers would drop points. Awkward game, ahead in a couple of minutes. Gascoigne again involved with Laudrup. We won that. But also for the Olders, and Adam, when you ever have the time, I'd love a bit of analysis of back past Rangers. But 86, 87, Easter weekend, sun splitting the skies as it is today. Rangers beat Hearts 3-0. Ali McCoy's hat-trick. There are aeroplane celebrations because we know for the first time in a long time it is within touching distance, and indeed it would be at Pittodrie the next week. So it's those games that just it's now within touching distance. We are very far away from touching distance, Adam, at the moment. The weekend, some interesting games, obviously. If Hearts go to Easter Road and win, I think that is a massive statement, because I imagine Hibs will be fairly up for this one. They utterly destroyed them early in the season. Well, did for the most part, got a wee bit nervy near the end. They're last, aren't they? This weekend, we can obviously put the pressure further on in that game. How do you see the weekend panning out?
That is one of the games I've got circled. I have to say as okay, that probably needs something to drop for in Rangers' favour. I'm starting to feel it a little bit now. I think it's fine. I've tried to be relatively calm and say, look, this you never know that Rangers are doing this and doing that, and now Rangers are doing the things that I said that they might they might start to do. I'm losing it a little bit if I'm going to be frank. I think the news at the press conference earlier today was really positive, and I kind of agree with it. I think the manager said that 2 Romans will probably not be risked at the weekend. Ironically, after just what we've spoken about here, James Tavernier had an absolute horror show for me at Falkirk. The wrong type of player he was playing against, I think, for him. Probably anyway, but when he's not got that little bit of pace left that he had, we know the conditions were an issue. Absolutely. He obviously gave away the penalty. So Dujon Sterling coming back in will be huge for me. I think we know Motherwell are not in a great situation again. It would have been good if they had done us a solid a couple of weeks ago there, but we know they have dropped, and it's no wins in the last 5, I think it is. So again, that sets us up when we start to think Rangers are going to do things. And we're like, okay. So I think it's all set up. I think 2 Romans would be a big miss. I have thought Jaden Magoma has been good to very good at times, but you see the difference now. We spoke about this before.
So good.
2 Romans coming in just calms everything down. So that's a big miss for me. But if we have Sterling on the other side, I'm comfortable that it's improved a little bit and can let Magoma do what he needs to do on that side. And then Nadiri, the manager was non-committal, but he'll be back before the end of the season. It sounds like, so we'd be hoping that's what Parkhead onwards would be huge. If that was something that we could do. It's getting more fraught for sure. We do need that drop, particularly when Celtic have I was going to say 2 kinder fixtures, but certainly one kind fixture at the weekend, and then they play Easter Road, I think, before we play at Tynecastle. So that's a pretty defining weekend next weekend, as I'm sure they all will be. So I'm starting to. If this rambling monologue didn't tell you, I'm starting to lose it a little bit in terms of that. But I have the comfort that, as I keep saying and I keep boring people with, Rangers pick up the most points, Rangers create the most chances, Rangers score the most goals. Whatever comes out of this, I think that is a really important thing to think of. And as I've said for a while, unless we see the mother of all collapses here, I think there are huge reasons to be positive going into the summer. It would be terrific for this to end the way that we all want it to do. But I don't have any doubt that we're going in the right direction, regardless, which is not something I could say very much in the last 4 or 5 years.
Totally agree. As much as we circle Hearts at Easter Road, we probably just assume that we win on Sunday and not really have to give that much thought. There are no assumptions at this stage of the season. We really, really need to be on it. I think we will win. It could be a bit nervy. I think we'll be top of the league come the end of the weekend, and
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be, but then, a mammoth couple of weekends after that. We can deal with that next week. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
I'm away to put my head in the freezer. I will see you next weekend for more fun and games. Bye for now.